This is Midgar, our home, recreated in 1/10,000th scale. As you can see here, the 8 Mako reactors form a ring around the center of our city and keep Midgar running day and night. The Mako which flows beneath our feet is a truly limitless resource. At SHINRA, we have developed technologies to extract it and transform it into the fuel and electricity that powers everything we do. Thanks to the miracle of Mako energy, our lives are richer and better than ever before. Mako keeps our lights on at night and made Midgar into the city that never sleeps. A triumph of technology and testament to man's potential.
Nothing but a bunch of lies.
Except that Mako has made people's lives better.
It's made people blind. Blind to the cold, hard truth. Even I used to buy into their bullshit. Remembering that makes me even madder.
Hello class, welcome back to the channel, and welcome to a very special video that I have been planning and working on for a few weeks now. A couple warnings right out the gate. First off, this video is about the remake of Final Fantasy VII that recently came out for PlayStation 4, and it does contain pretty significant spoilers. They're 20-year-old spoilers, but still, if you haven't played it yet, maybe you want to skip this one. Second, though this is a fictional setting and the violence is kind of cartoony, there is violence and there is depiction of widespread destruction and death in this video. There is no blood, there is no guts, there is no gore, nothing like that. You don't even see any visible injuries other than a small cut on somebody's head. But the content involves a lot of death. So be warned about that. Okay, let's get to it. So, in case it isn't clear, Midgar is essentially a city on top of a city, right? You've got a very, very large disk made out of 8 plates up top, on which is the upper city. And 300 meters below the plate is the ground level, which is primarily slums. Now, there isn't much you need to know about this story for this video to make sense to you. The characters you saw in the video are members of an organization called Avalanche. This organization is, depending on who you ask, either a group of freedom fighters or a bunch of eco-terrorists.
Both is good.
The giant building in the middle, along with the entire city, is owned by the energy megacorporation SHINRA. Now, by this point in the game, Avalanche has already scored several key victories against SHINRA, some of which were very embarrassing. And the thing about Avalanche is they're really hard to catch. After they go out and destroy an energy plant, they immediately go and melt away into the slums underneath one of the plates that make up the Midgar city. So at this point, the president of SHINRA has decided that enough is enough, and he sends a team to do this.
Where are you going?
Plate separation initiated. Plate separation initiated. Commencing separation sequence. Section 1 separation imminent. Evacuate immediately. Plate separation initiated.
You son of a bitch! What have you done?
Cloud!
Tifa!
Total plate separation imminent. Evacuate the area immediately.
No.
There's a way out!
Tifa.
Come on! Come on!
Now, obviously, this act is horrific and monstrous, and it's the single event, more than any other, that solidifies Shinra's position as one of the main villains of this game. I remember when I first played the original Final Fantasy game, back when we played by banging rocks together, and it was a really big revelation to see that the villain of this particular game would be so willing to sacrifice so many innocent lives just to take out a fairly small but persistent group of insurgents. So here's a top-down look of roughly what Midgar looks like, and the area that was destroyed is Sector 7. Now you'll notice that it's not a whole wedge, right? The company didn't burn the whole wedge, they only burned up to the Shinra building. The building itself is fine, so we are looking for the area of this partial sector right here. Now, to do that, we're going to need a few pieces of information. The first thing we're going to need to know, if we want to find out the area of any sort of sector, is we need to know what this central angle is. That's our first step. Once we have the central angle, we'll also need the radius of Midgar and the radius of the building that wasn't hurt during the explosion. Well, okay, there's one value here that I think I can figure out pretty quickly. That angle theta, well, we know that there are 360 degrees in a circle, and it looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sectors. So to find out what that angle is, we're just going to take 360 degrees and divide it by 8. So that theta is 45 degrees. Fantastic. Now, what about these two radiuses? Here is a picture of the model of Midgar that we looked at right at the beginning of the video. We are going to use this model and a few assumptions to try to come up with a total area of destruction for this particular attack. Now this picture is really dark, so we're going to go ahead and brighten it up a little. There, now I can actually see. Next, I'm going to make a right triangle using the height of the Shinra building and the total radius of Midgar. Notice that I'm not going quite all the way to the edge of the disk because there's that big wall with the Mako reactors ringing the outside, and that part was not destroyed. I make a second overlapping right triangle representing the distance from the center to the edge of the Shinra building, so that we can subtract those two wedges from each other and get a total area. So that leaves us with one important question, but one that I had a really hard time with. How tall exactly is the Shinra building? If we knew that, we could figure everything else out. This, dear students, is where I hit my biggest snag. Though I know that the model we've been using is 1/10,000th scale, and that the plate is 300 meters off the ground, I was not able to turn that into a solid estimate of the height of the building. That said, it is clear from the picture that each plate has its own city borough with its own large buildings, so we can assume that the Shinra headquarters is, at the very least, very, very tall, even compared to other high-rise buildings on the plate. With this in mind, let's take a look at a real-life building that also outsizes everything around it. This is the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. At over 828 meters tall, it seems to dwarf the buildings around it, much like the Shinra building does. In fact, the skylines of the two cities look pretty similar, so until I'm able to find a more accurate estimate, or until Sony releases the official height of the Shinra building, let's go ahead and make the assumption that it is of a height with the Burj Khalifa, making the Shinra building 828 meters tall. Then I used an ordinary protractor and determined that the angle of elevation from the far edge of the disk is 29 degrees, and the angle of elevation from the edge of the Shinra building is 55 degrees. Again, nothing fancy here, I just held up a protractor to my screen. Now, those of you who have been in my class, you already know what I'm going to say next. We've got two triangles that are layered on top of each other. We're going to separate them and deal with them each on their own. So here we have two right triangles, one of which has an angle at 55 degrees and one of which has an angle at 29 degrees. And both of them, we assume, have an altitude of 828 meters. There's R1. There's R2. Take a moment, pause the video, see if you can find those for me. Well, okay, this is a little bit of right triangle trigonometry review, which is really nice. What do we have? What do we need? What do we have? What do we need? All right, well, in both of these, let's see, here's the angle right there. That one's the hypotenuse. Let's see, that leaves two legs. So one leg is the adjacent leg and one leg is the opposite leg. It looks like we have the opposite leg and we're looking for the adjacent leg. Okay, we have opposite, we need adjacent. The next step, as always, is SOHCAHTOA. You can count on us. I think I've used that one before, but it doesn't matter because it's been a little while. SOHCAHTOA. Which one of these three has what we need and what we have? And the only one I see is tangent. Tangent is opposite over adjacent. Both of the other two have hypotenuse in it, and we're not really interested in the hypotenuse. Okay. So we know that tangent of 55 degrees is opposite over adjacent, 828 over R1. Over here on the right side, it's very much similar. Tangent of 29 degrees equals 828 over R2. In both of these equations, we're going to go ahead and cross multiply. And we get R1 times the tangent of 55 degrees equals 1 times 828 is 828. Next step, we divide both sides by the tangent of 55 degrees, which again is just an ordinary, if somewhat complicated, number. And now all we have to do is plug in our values into our calculator. Let's start with the smaller one, radius 1. What's 828 divided by tangent of 55 degrees?
The answer is approximately 579.771842.
579.8 meters. Okay, how about the larger radius?
The answer is approximately 1,493.751541.
So there we have it. Using trigonometry, we have discovered that not only is this disk about 1.5 kilometers from center to edge, but also that the Shinra building itself is pretty massive, being over a kilometer across. So now we can go back to our model here, and we can erase the variables, and we can label it with the distances that we now know. Okay, for the last step, we're going to go all the way back to our sector here. The whole point of this was to figure out how big is this shaded sector that was dropped onto the slums. Well, let's see. We know that the area of a sector is theta in degrees divided by 360 times pi times the radius squared. And what we're going to do is we're going to find the area of this entire wedge using the bigger radius. Then we're going to find the area of this small wedge, and we're going to subtract the two. So our central angle is 45 degrees over 360. And that's going to be times pi, the outside radius is 1,493.8 meters squared. Okay? That is the area of the entire wedge. But since the Shinra building didn't take any damage, we're going to subtract, again, 45 over 360, because it's still a 45-degree angle. But then pi times the smaller radius, this little radius right here, squared. And we determined that that was 579.8 meters. And now the only thing left to do is plug it into the calculator and see what we get. After plugging all the numbers into the calculator, the answer I got was an absolutely staggering 744,287.8 square meters. Double that to take into account the fact that there's both the overcity and the slums, and you have an even more incredible 1.5 million square meters destroyed. If we assume a population density similar to New York City's right here in the real world, that gives us a death toll of almost 40,000 people. So many innocent lives lost just to try to take out a few dissidents. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that video. It took me a lot of work to put together, but I think the end result was worth it. I'd love to know what you think in the comments, and I'd also love to know what other kinds of videos would interest you. I don't want to just keep doing lecture videos all the time. I'd like to do more practical videos like this, so give me your suggestions right there in the down there part. Thanks for watching, and class dismissed.